Criminal Minds, Season 1, Episode 1. Today's story begins with the FBI's Elite Behavioral Analysis Unit, better known as the BAU. These agents don't just investigate crimes, they study criminals themselves, trying to understand how killers think before they strike again. The episode opens with veteran profiler Jason Gideon returning to work after a 6-month leave of absence. Gideon is considered one of the FBI's best profilers, but a previous bombing case left him emotionally shaken. Despite concerns about whether he's ready to return, his team needs him. At the same time, panic is spreading in Seattle. Over the last few months, several young women have disappeared without a trace. Each victim matches a similar profile. They're young, attractive, and vanish seemingly at random. The police believe they are dealing with a serial killer, but they have no idea who he is. When a fourth woman disappears, the FBI is called in. The clock is ticking because the previous victims were all found dead within a week of their abduction. If the pattern continues, the newest victim may only have days left to live. The BAU team arrives in Seattle and begins examining the evidence. The team consists of Unit Chief Aaron Hotchner, profiling expert Jason Gideon, Derek Morgan, genius Dr. Spencer Reed, and local FBI agent L. Greenaway. While examining the case files, Gideon immediately notices something unusual. Most serial killers try to avoid attention. This killer seems to want recognition. The unsub, short for unknown subject, is displaying confidence and control. He carefully selects victims and leaves almost no evidence behind. But Gideon believes the killer is making one crucial mistake. He's becoming comfortable. And comfortable killers make mistakes. Meanwhile, the audience gets a glimpse of the latest victim. Unlike the previous women, she is still alive. She's being held captive somewhere unknown. Terrified and isolated, she has no idea if anyone is looking for her. Back at headquarters, the team starts building a psychological profile. They conclude that the killer is likely intelligent, organized, and socially capable. He doesn't appear threatening at first glance. In fact, he probably comes across as trustworthy. This is important because none of the victims showed signs of a struggle before disappearing. The women willingly got close enough to him to become vulnerable. That means the killer knows how to manipulate people. As the investigation continues, the BAU discovers another disturbing detail. The killer seems obsessed with power and control. He keeps his victims alive for several days before murdering them. To him, the kidnapping is just as important as the killing itself. The victims are trophies, a way for him to feel dominant. Gideon begins to suspect the killer may have a history of sexual violence that escalated over time. Many serial killers don't start with murder. They begin with stalking, voyeurism, or assault before progressing to homicide. The team starts digging through old criminal records. Soon, they identify a man who appears to fit part of the profile. He's a convicted sex offender with a history of violent behavior. The suspect becomes their primary lead. Excited by the breakthrough, law enforcement moves quickly. The suspect is arrested and brought in for questioning. At first, it seems like the case is solved. But Gideon isn't convinced. Something doesn't fit. The suspect has a violent past, but his personality doesn't match the sophisticated behavior seen in the recent crimes. The killer they're hunting is methodical and calculating. This man is reckless and impulsive. Gideon believes they're missing something. As the team investigates further, they uncover a connection between the suspect and another man. This second individual has remained completely under the radar. Unlike the first suspect, he appears ordinary. He has no obvious reason to attract attention, and that's exactly what makes him dangerous. The BAU realizes they may have been looking at the wrong person all along. The first suspect wasn't the killer. He was simply connected to the real one. Now the team races against time. The victim is still alive, but every hour that passes reduces her chances of survival. The investigators begin reconstructing the killer's behavior. They study how he approached victims, how he selected them, how he maintained control. Slowly, a clearer picture emerges. The unsub is someone who desperately wants to feel powerful. In everyday life, he is insignificant, invisible. But through murder, he becomes important. This psychological insight becomes the key to the case. Gideon realizes the killer isn't just seeking victims, he's seeking validation. He wants to feel superior. He wants to prove he's smarter than everyone else. Armed with this profile, finally, They locate her. She's terrified but alive. However, the killer isn't ready to surrender. A confrontation follows. Using their understanding of his psychology, the agents attempt to gain an advantage. Rather than relying solely on force, they use profiling. They know his weaknesses, his insecurities, his need for recognition. The killer's carefully constructed fantasy begins to collapse. For the first time, he loses control. And once a serial killer loses control, mistakes happen. The standoff comes to an end. The victim is rescued. The killer is captured. Another potential murder has been prevented. For the BAU, it's a victory. But it's also a reminder of the darkness they face every day. The episode closes with Gideon reflecting on his return to the team. Although he still carries emotional scars from his previous case, he proves that his instincts remain unmatched. His ability to understand criminal behavior helped save a life. The team also demonstrates why the BAU is different from traditional investigators. They don't just ask what happened, they ask why. Because understanding the mind of a killer is often the only way to stop one. And with that, the Behavioral Analysis Unit's first case comes to an end. But for this team, there will always be another criminal mind waiting to be understood.